Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week, again, as you can see, acrylic landscape painting. I really want to get into the acrylic painting. I do believe that all the different materials have their own pros and cons, their own unique characteristics. For example, there's things you can do with watercolor that you could never do with oil paint or acrylic or soft pastels. So at the moment, I'm using the soft pastels occasionally, not very much, watercolor and charcoal. So just adding in acrylic, maybe I can discover some new ways of expressing myself using the acrylic paint. And it is sort of a process of discovery. And at the moment I'm still very much at the early stages, so I haven't really figured out how to use acrylic paint yet. It is a learning process. Sometimes I think learning a new medium or learning art, how to paint and things for the first time, it's a bit like maybe learning another language, a foreign language. So you want to express yourself in this new language, but you just don't have the words or the phrases or the grammar. So it can be a little bit frustrating as well as being exciting. You know, when you're starting to learn a language, if you learn 10 new words, if you learn how to count to 10, you've made progress. It may not be a huge amount, but you have made some progress. So that's the way I kind of try to look at learning to paint with a new medium. It's like baby steps, you know. You're not going to create a masterpiece on the first attempt. It's going to take quite a while to build up. When I got started with watercolor, it took about 2 years before I was even slightly happy with some of the results. The first 6 months I was going to give up because it just didn't seem to be making any progress at all. And I don't think there's any magic formula for learning to paint or learning to paint with a different medium. It is just this. For me, I think the best way for me anyway to think about it is this. It's a process of discovery and exploration. With this particular painting, again, I'm using a limited palette, and I'll put the names of the colors in the description box below because I know some people are interested in that thing. All of the colors are by a company called Daler Rowney, and I think the particular brand of paint is called Cryla, C-R-Y-L-A. It's quite a thick acrylic paint. You can see some of it on the palette on the left hand side. So I say it's just about 5 or 6 colors that I'm using. The composition, the original idea, and you can see a bit of a pencil sketch in there, was it would be this little house in an open countryside. That composition will change completely, and you'll see towards the end of the video it ends up being completely different. The house disappears completely. And again, I think that's okay. Don't have to stick to the original composition. If you decide halfway through the painting that it needs to change, then why not change it? These things are not set in stone. And of course with acrylic, it's easier to change things than it would be with watercolor. Watercolor is very different from acrylic and oil paint in the sense that watercolor kind of stains the paper. The pigment gets into the paper and stains it, and that's sort of permanent. It's very difficult to paint over areas that you don't like. But with acrylic and oil, okay, acrylic paint dries much quicker than oil paint, so you can't really scrape it off, but you can sort of paint over it. And as long as you're not putting the paint down too thickly, it is possible to paint over and change things. And you'll see me doing that. You can see the little house appearing. It's going to disappear quite soon. So it is one, if you like, advantage of acrylic over watercolor, is this ability to change things. And so that's the end of the little house. I think part of the reason why I wanted to change this was once you put like a building or something in, it becomes a kind of closed composition that becomes a focal point then, because you get the contrast between the landscape, the shapes in the landscape, and the more regular angular shapes of the house. I prefer a more open composition. I always feel, and maybe it's just me, but I always feel that the open composition kind of suggests a more expansive landscape. There's a feeling that the landscape does continue on past the edge of the paper. Once you close the composition down and put a focal point in, I think it sort of closes off the composition a little bit. I say it might just be the way I think of it, but I just prefer these open compositions. I think one thing I want to try to do next with the acrylic is maybe adding some sort of medium or water or something to loosen the paint and try and put the paint on more loosely and build up layers. At the moment I'm just sort of dabbing paint on here and there, so you get this sort of broken brushwork, which is okay, but I think it's a little bit limited maybe. And just like I say, I'm still exploring things and just trying different things, so maybe in a couple of weeks or so I'll have another video on another attempt. Okay, well, this is the final painting, and you can see the difference once I got rid of the little house. It does, I feel anyway, it feels more open. And I wanted to capture that sort of standing on a hillside or in a field or something in summer, and it was in a sort of expansive landscape and the blue sky and the white clouds and things. So I was happy that I changed the composition. Okay, well, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.